You're listening to The Pulse on AMI Audio. I'm Grant Hardy. Today, we're having what I think is going to be a really fascinating panel discussion about assistive technology, how we use it, how it benefits us, and just looking forward to the future, what could be improved, and how to address some of the challenges with assistive technology. Joining me on the panel is Jacob Shymanski, host of AMI Today and AMI Audiobook Review, and Steven, Scott and Shaun Preece, host of Double Tap, both shows airing on AMI Audio. Thanks so much for joining us today, guys. And first, I just want to have a roundtable discussion of what assistive technology products we use, how you use them, and how they're beneficial. Let's start with Steven for this one. On a daily basis, what AT do you use?
Oh, I love that you came to me first with this, Grant, because it means I can say iPhone and then just move on. I love it. Thank you. I know everyone's going to jump on the iPhone or maybe Android. Things are changing. But a smartphone ultimately is it, right? For most people out there, the smartphone is the first thing you might think of. And it is certainly anytime you ask the question, we do it all the time on the show. What are you using? What do you have? Everyone always tells you first their smartphone of choice. And then they'll talk about perhaps a computer of some kind, Windows or Mac. I think that ultimately the amount of technology out there has actually shrunk down everything into this smartphone. There was a time when, we had lots and lots of equipment we would use. I mean, in specialist terms for blind people, there's a whole host of other equipment, you can think of. Like I still use a Victor Reader Stream 3. In fact, since I lost more vision a few years ago, I actually started using that kind of tech more. I'm also using a Braille embosser these days and a Braille display on my computer. I've got a Mantis Q40, which is a QWERTY keyboard with a Braille display built in that I find really useful. We just started a newsletter at Double Tap, and that means I need to make sure that what I'm writing down actually is correct. Can't just, scramble any old rubbish down and hope someone can figure it out on email. It's going out to the public, right? So I want to make sure these things are correct. Things I'm spelling are correct, and that allows me to do it. So, I suppose it depends on where you are. I mean, for a lot of low vision people, it might be the smartphone is it, and perhaps a computer, perhaps an iPad. But for me, it's very much my smartphone, my iPhone in my case, my trusty Mac, and and my Victor Reader I think about, and my Braille display. That's my kind of core components, I think.
It's a good point, because I think literally we used to have drawers full of stuff: GPS products, money reader, book player, this and that. And now I think the smartphone has taken over like pretty much all of that stuff. And by the way, I'm very jealous of that Mantis. I do have a Braille display, but would love to get a more high-tech one.
You're not getting mine.
Yeah. Do you mind sending me your address and the times you're not home? No, just kidding. Jacob, let's just move on to you. Anything you'd like to add?
The iPhone and Android, if you want to go there, is like a pocket knife. It's a tool of tools, right? It's a tool that enables you that gives you access to all of these apps that all offer something unique in terms of accessibility. Obviously, the holy grail of accessibility tools is screen readers, be that as voiceover on iOS, or TalkBack on Android, or NVDA or JAWS on your desktop computer or your laptop or your Mac. That's the holy grail. But I do want to shout out Seeing AI by Microsoft. That's an app on Android and iOS. I use it every day, no joke. And it's mostly just to read text very quickly. And I use it to read cans. I don't even bother organizing or labeling my cans because I have this app. It saves me so much time just because of that. I could, every single time I do groceries, label my cans with Braille or my boxes with Braille. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to whip out my phone and get it to read the text on the can. It's so much faster. And something that I've been using quite a bit recently, and this is a trick that a friend showed me, is that when you're using Seeing AI, which for the people who don't know, detects video, detects like the camera on your phone and then describes things as you're pointing at it. Usually, and one of the channels that it has is just text. So any text it sees on your camera, it'll read it out for you. When you're walking around, you have lots of navigation apps, which I think we'll get to a little later. But when you get to the door, it's like the hardest thing is to find the door. And sometimes like you're on the right block. We just looking for that building for the right like business. Just use the text channel to read out what's like going by you. So if you're walking down the sidewalk, just hold your camera pointing up to the side towards the wall next to you, and it'll read everything it sees. So if you're looking for a Chinese restaurant and then you hear it scream out dumpling blah 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 blah, oh, that must be the Chinese place. And I use that all the time. It's incredibly useful.
It's surprisingly difficult to line up something like a can so exactly. Take one photo and then just see if you got the part of the label that you need. But with seeing AI being able to just literally wave your camera around, like you said, I think that really changes the whole dimension. That absolutely, like, you know what? At this point, it's easier than labeling boxes.
Absolutely. It's way easier.
Because it's just so easy to move that camera around. Shaun, I'm just curious if there are any other apps that you use on a daily basis, or even a screen reader. How does one kind of like select their preferred screen reader, or any other AT products you use?
Well, there's nothing left. I mean, that's it. Everyone's taken everything. It's ridiculous. It's an interesting question, and both Jacob and Steven actually touched on this. Is, you know, you say what assistive tech, and immediately I was going to say the screen reader is the thing that changed everything for me. Just being able to access anything, you know, no matter what the platform, as Jacob mentioned. But the assistive tech label has become even more interesting because I'm thinking, you know, the thing I use most every single day is a smart speaker, I suppose, you know, accessing calendars and dropping in on people and making calls even, and everything, radio, music. It's not really assistive tech, right? It's the same with the smartphone. You know, this mainstream, this divide between mainstream and what is assistive tech has really become blurred. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but yeah, when it comes down to what I use every day, again, I think the smartphone is my main device. It is the tool that I use all the time. Seeing AI is amazing, as well as, you know, apps like Soundscape or Voice Vista. Voice Vista I use every day, and it's almost as a backup, you know, so I can turn off my brain, you know, to just half power instead of full power all the time, concentrating to make sure I am where I think I am. It just gives me that extra backup of, yeah,
it's
you're
for
on
reassurance.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. It just means I don't have to think so hard all of the time. And as blind and visually impaired people, you know, it's exhausting sometimes, constantly trying to, you know, process 1,000 different things, whatever you're hearing, what's under your feet to where you are. So, yeah, I've got to say, they just stole everything from me, Steven and Jacob. Yeah, the smartphone.
Well, there is one thing you've forgotten.
Yeah, a smart speaker is something that you would almost think is designed for a blind person. It's so efficient to get that information with your voice, which I think brings up an interesting topic here of just how much, I guess, technology that you might think of as blindness or assistive technology is being embraced by the mainstream, and vice versa, that we are embracing mainstream technology. So I'm curious, Shaun, you commented a little bit on the lines blurring between AT and mainstream technology. I'm just curious if anybody would like to comment on that as well.
Well, I was going to just say there's one product that we forgot about in all of this, and that is the Meta Ray-Ban glasses. And I mentioned them in particular. They're not the only game in town, and certainly won't be forever, but they are a rather prominent player at the moment in the blind community, and they definitely blur the line because, you know, not only are they a mainstream product, these are, you know, typical pair of, you know, fancy, classy looking, you know, sunglasses or glasses if you want, you know, you can have them out of the way. And, you know, they have the smarts in them. You can listen to your screen reader through them. You can play music through them. You can make video calls through them. And now, of course, they have that relationship with Be My Eyes. So that really does blur the line, right? Because this is a mainstream product, but you're working with a product which is built for blind people, Be My Eyes being that volunteer service. And suddenly you have this fusion of technology going on, which is very interesting. And, you know, it seems that this is where it's going to go. We see Google working with Ira, the visual interpreter service, another service built for blind people. And they're working with the Project Astra and the Google team to develop this into future iterations of glasses, and that will use AI. And that, I guess, leads us to the next bit of this, really, in the future. And then we're probably jumping ahead a bit here, but AI really is where it's going to be at for a lot of us. I mean, in what form in 10 years' time, I don't know. And I can't even tell you next 6 months, because honestly, things are changing so much. But, we've already seen how AI can help us. I mean, let's be honest about it. A couple of years ago, I don't think many blind people would have taken much interest in pictures. And suddenly AI comes along and gives us the ability to analyze an image and get a text description back telling us what is in that image. And we can now go further and investigate that image and ask questions. And we could never do that before. So suddenly you have blind people taking pictures, using their Meta Ray-Ban frames. They're analyzing those images using Be My AI or Meta AI or whatever else. It's incredible to see how things are changing and actually opening up new areas for us, areas we would never have thought about being interested in before.
It's everything from those big things like quote unquote looking through photos, which we can now do, to all those little things that we might have skipped. Reading a book, an academic self-help book, whatever it is, and there's a little figure 1 and you need to look at this diagram and analyze it. And now we can. There's so much controversy about AI, but I think there's no doubt that for the accessibility community, it has huge benefits. But I am curious to move into that topic. The future of AI, but of assistive technology rather, but also maybe some areas where we're falling short right now that we need to improve. Do you guys have any comment on what's either frustrating or what do you hope we do better in the future? Shaun, do you
mean when it comes to AI or assistive tech?
I'm sorry, assistive technology, just in general. Those things where you're either like, oh man, it's so, I can't believe we can't do this yet, or a little more of a hopeful side. What are you hoping? I'll give you an example. I cannot wait as we see AI getting more deeply integrated into screen readers. I can't wait for that day when I can just say, I need to drag this from this point to this other point. I can't click on this button. Can you click on it for me? And have it
that'd be great.
interact with accessible apps. So just stuff like that. Any improvements you'd like to see in the future?
Well, absolutely. The agent aspect is what you're describing there. And that's absolutely, it's almost the holy grail, right? That along with the ability for AI to monitor, through the camera on my glasses or the phone, and then actually interject when I'm about to hit something or, describe something without me having to prompt it all the time. Those are the sort of holy grails when it comes to our wants and our needs. But it's funny, Steve and I were talking to someone from Google today, and I asked the question, is AI the answer? Because it does seem like we're looking for AI to almost solve all our accessibility issues. And I want to say that's not right, but to be brutally honest with you, it seems like it is, isn't it? When it comes down to even the computers or smartphones that we use, that conversational style of being able to interact with a computer, it's just so, I don't know, it just seems so ideal. So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think the ability to ask AI to perform a task where we don't have to, remember the keyboard shortcut or find that inaccessible button or whatever it may be, that's going to be a game changer.
Well, the beautiful thing about AI being able to interact with your computer is that it's just more intuitive. And just because something is more intuitive, it doesn't mean it's not as complex. All it means is that it's easier to use. And there's a lot of terminology that's difficult to wrap your head around when you're using a computer, right? Like if you're looking to change some sort of setting, like you don't know what it's called in the settings. If you could just go in there and ask the AI, oh, the volume is too loud here. Is there any way we could make it more manageable? And then it would come back to you and he's like, it sounds like you're talking about audio ducking. Let me find that for you. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be just so huge because computers are so complicated, and it'd be nice to be able to break it down a little bit into smaller steps. And further to Shaun as well, your point about AI maybe being the answer to get visual assistance, I think there's no point in denying that sometimes calling a human being and saying, does my shirt look too wrinkled for this dinner out with someone I'm just meeting? Or does my place look messy? Is there anything I'm missing here? Whatever it is. And I think the great thing is with a computer, you don't have to worry about dignity at all. You just ask whatever you need.
Get dignity. That's the double tap way. Thank you. That's beautiful. AI to save your dignity.
But you know what? Can I just say, I think sometimes it's also the mundane as well. So one for
Yes.
me is, you know, I go to catch a bus, or I want to catch a bus, and I just want to know when the next bus is. And I don't really want to have to, you know, go through 1,000 swipes to navigate through an app. The app I use actually is Move It, which I think is a wonderful app. And it's the most accessible I've found to get live bus time information and get tracking information on that bus as well. But, you know, trains as well. I go for a train and I go to my local train station. And, you know, in the city of Glasgow, you've got the train station there. I go to Glasgow Central. I want to know what platform the train's on. That's what I want to know. I just want to know what platform the train's on. I don't have to swipe through 15,000 items to get to that thing. I just want to ask my phone what platform's the train to London Euston going to be sitting on, and it just goes off and tells me. And it's funny because I remember a conversation that kicked off around gaming, accessible gaming, when they brought in what was called easy mode. And everyone kind of got very annoyed about the idea of there being an easy mode. Oh, you're cheating. But actually, all that was really happening was that it was surfacing up very quickly the information that someone who could see it was able to glance at. And that's what we're looking for. We just want a quick way to do the glance. You know, that's how we got to think about this, right? Because that's a really frustrating part. The information is on the screen that is staring us in the face, but we have to, you know, we're not able to just look at it and get that information direct. So it's the really mundane sometimes that we really need to try and kind of solve. That's the frustrations for me.
Yeah, and that's another example that I kind of thought of with regards to improvement in technology, which is around navigation. This is just a huge puzzle. And I like that you mentioned getting information quickly as a good next step. But indoor and outdoor navigation, I feel, is still very much behind where it should be. And I can't wait for more and more brilliant solutions to come out. Jacob, do you have any thoughts on how you'd like to see navigation apps improved, or anything that's benefiting you right now?
So I think a big one, and this might be asking for too much, but we're using AI in absolutely everything. What I want to see is AI that exists directly on your device. And so you don't have to be connected to the internet to do that. And the reason that matters is because it's fast, right? Imagine you're able to position yourself relatively quickly using GPS, but the AI actually communicates to you in like a timely manner. And I know that even when walking slow, sometimes I find the GPS turn by turn navigation that I use will be like slightly behind. Yes. And so just the snappiness of it would go a very long way. Now, turn by turn directions are very helpful to a lot of people, but personally, what I find really helpful is just being able to orient yourself. And that's as simple as knowing the intersections that you're looking for. And if there was an app that really focused on that, that's what I'm going to use. And that's why I always use Soundscape, because that's what I find it's amazing at, is calling up the intersections that you're heading towards.
That feels like a really interesting sort of riddle, isn't it? That when we got into smartphones, GPS maps were no longer stored locally. Everything is just in the cloud. And that's not always the advantage that it seems to be. And I feel like there's been a little bit of a debate on, like, do we need really powerful hardware, or do we need really unremarkable hardware that just connects somewhere into the cloud? And I think with AI, maybe we're falling a little back too much on, oh, just connect to my server and do this. But actually, there's some real advantages of having super powerful hardware, continuing to develop that, so we don't have to rely on anybody else's servers being unreachable at the moment. Steven or Shaun, what are your thoughts on kind of that? I know I'm putting you a little bit on the spot, but I'm just curious.
I think Jacob is absolutely right. On device is always preferable. But
Mm.
when it comes to navigation, it's really difficult, right? Because how much feedback do you actually want? I mean, sometimes I've had, Soundscape or Voice Vista, same thing, running, and maybe Blind Square and maybe something else all running at the same time. And the amount of information I'm getting is
Overload.
unbelievable. Yeah, but you can get overwhelmed then. But at the same time, I've been in exactly the same position as Jacob mentioned, where I'm walking down the street thinking, come on, say something. Am I going the right
Yes.
way?
Yeah, exactly.
Please talk to me. So it's really difficult. It's a difficult balance to hit that. So I'm not entirely sure. What I have noticed is that a lot of these apps and navigation services now are starting to combine different things. So it's not just relying on GPS. It's going to also use what it can see through the camera, or the number of steps is another interesting one we've seen for indoor navigation when it comes to way maps. The number of steps and the 3D mapping data that maybe it's managed to get for the building. So yeah, I think we're still navigation. I agree with you, Grant. I think it is way behind still, especially when it comes to indoor navigation.
Yeah, I mean, it comes to, I think about a trip my wife and I took a couple of weeks ago. We'd gone down to the coast and we came out of the train station. We were in this street and, I couldn't hear. I'm thinking, well, it's obvious where the beach is going to be, right? Because I'm going to hear seagulls and I'm going to hear, the sound of beach, I guess.
The
Sound
of beach. We all
the
know
sound
it.
of beach. That classic sound of beach.
Yeah,
And,
that album. Yes.
yeah, that's right. But I couldn't hear a thing. I was in amongst all these buildings. So at that moment, I'm thinking, okay, I don't know any of the streets around here. I don't know this place. So if I pull out a map, it's not going to help me because I don't know where anything is. So immediately what I did was I opened up my phone. I opened up Ira so I could speak to a human being who I could talk to and say, okay, I want to get to the beach. And I'd be basically doing with them what I'd like to do with AI, which is just to say to the map, I want to go to the beach, and it understands my location, it knows where the beach is, and it starts heading me in that direction. That is not impossible to do. Now, Shaun, I know you've just joined a trial. Like you mentioned it here, or you mentioned it somewhere, but you were talking about, was it Navis?
Navis, that's right. I spoke about it on AMI today, and to you, personally, Stephen Scott, but obviously
I have no memory of that.
Yeah, Navis is exactly what we're looking for here. It's a combination between that AI conversational model and actually the data set that it's checking, rather than huge amounts of data. It's specifically on navigation data, so the map around you, the points of interest, and things like that. So you could actually say something like, I want to get to the beach. Now there might be 7 pubs around there called the beach that it might take you to first.
That's fine.
It might be fine. Yeah.
But the point is, it's about the easy access. Again, not having to swipe through and find, because in real life, don't you find swiping and navigating through apps really sort of difficult than it is, sat in your room at home?
Oh, it's in the moment, isn't it? It's always the in the moment problem. I was trying, like I was telling you about the train thing. I remember trying Move It for the very first time. I actually spent so long trying to find the bus I was trying to get on that I missed 3 of them.
Yes.
It took me that long just to figure out, hang on, this bus, and then at which point it was gone. I just need the information now. I often talk about the real world problem. I love seeing AI, and I love the fact that I can walk in and I can pull my phone out and I can open up Seeing AI, exactly like you're saying, Jacob. I go into a store and I think, hey, is this shirt in my size? I've never done this in my life, but I know people do it. So, I go into, in my pretend scenario, I go into a shop and I pick up a shirt and I think, oh, what color is it? And blah, blah, blah. By the time I've actually pulled my phone out, unlocked it, fought with Face ID, got into the phone, got Seeing AI open, someone's come up to me and said, hey, can I help you? And that's the real world reality, right? So it's like, it needs to be quicker. And I have no issue with that. But the point is that it kind of shows that things aren't quick enough. It's not happening quick enough, and it's not responsive enough.
Can I add something in that regard, having to do with with the real world reality that we live in? It might be a bit controversial. Is indoor navigation really the priority we need to be focusing on? I don't think so, because it's not like indoor buildings are nearly as dangerous as outside. And plus, typically in public buildings, there's like always people there that are going to be willing to help you out, right? Like, to me, the priority is
Well,
outdoor navigation, and it's not even close.
my exception to that is shopping malls and airports. I think shopping malls, because look, if you're going somewhere, yeah, okay, you can always ask someone, but you then, you still got to get to the place, and it could be the other end of the shopping mall. Are they going to take you? And when it comes to airports, I want to travel independently. I don't really want to be going through the luggage carousel approach to, assistance at airports, where basically you're picked up at the disability station number 1 and dropped off at your gate number 12.
I like it.
I don't want that. Yeah, I know you love it. I can't. I want to go shopping.
delivery.
I want to go to the restaurant. I want to, wander about. I hear all these great restaurant shops, and I think I'm just getting taken right past them.
Yeah, I think that's really my concern. I 100% agree. For me, outdoor navigation is the biggest priority. It needs to be resolved so it gets, dare I say, perfect, equivalent to a sighted person's experience as soon as possible. However, if you ask me whether I've ever avoided going into a space or using part of an indoor space because I'm concerned about getting around, the answer is yes. So for something that I think should be easier, navigating indoors, it's again such a riddle. I do think it has to be worked on. It has to be improved, because we shouldn't have that concern of like Steven said, I would just want to go grab a bite. Heck, I want to pick up a cord or something at the airport mall. But how am I going to get someone to take me there or get me there? Is it just too much of a hassle? And I think that needs to be improved ASAP. Guys, anyone want to just add real quick how assistive technology has changed your life?
Wow.
Well,
What, a minute?
Just to wrap up with. You know what? It totally changed my life. I always was into computers growing up, and as I was losing my sight, I just really thought, that's it. I can't do what I want to do. It's over. And going back to the very first question, the screen reader saved my life. It simply did. And I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for assistive technology. It changed everything.
That's not an exaggeration. And I keep
100%.
thinking, if I was a blind person in the 1700s, I would have been bored out of my mind.
Oh, you had plenty to read, I guess. Mind you, was Braille invented then? No, probably not. No. Oh, it'd been terrible.
That's awful.
Feeling rocks all day. That's what you do, wouldn't it?
Yeah. The screen reader, 100%. And growing up in the era where every single year it was like a gift, there was something new from the screen reader that it could do. The internet, improved and editing in Office. Just every year there was something new and cool and different. And I absolutely agree. Without that, I don't know what my life would be like. We could talk for hours about assistive technology, but we are out of time. So I just want to thank you, Jacob, Steven, and Shaun, for joining us on Double Tap.
Oh, wow.
We got
The takeover's happening, I see.
Okay, I'm not taking over your show. I don't think that's the thing here. For joining us today on The Pulse. The Pulse airs on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern on AMI Audio. You can also catch our show on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Grant Hardy. Thanks so much for listening.